it's just dawned on me actually now. So Elon, everything that he's been doing, electric cars, solar panels, Boring Company, Neuralink, AI automation, Starbase, SpaceX, it's to go to Mars. It's to go to Mars, build a city, build tunnels, and the electric cars drive through them.
It's not Mars, dude. It's everything. It's
Ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet, welcome to Mind Gap. You're live here with Simo and Roy. He's the smart one. I press the buttons. We have one of our favourite guests in the studio. Actually, our first guest we ever had. So, you know, claim the win. Eddie, welcome back to the show.
It is my absolute pleasure to be back in the studio with you two. Time to get deep on some topics. A lot's happened. A lot of water under the bridge. Oh my gosh,
how much has happened.
All right.
Let's solve the world's problems, shall we?
Let's give it a fair crack.
Yeah,
We're not going to solve anything here, but...
Let's talk about it.
We can try.
Okay. Well, let me set the scene. So, 2020, watershed year for the human race.
Wow.
Fantastic.
That just about sums it up. Yeah.
Yeah. But it spurred on a whole lot of stuff. As in, we've had automation and, you know, robots potentially taking over a lot of stuff for a while. And people have just been putting it off. Like, it looks a bit too weird. It's a bit different. I don't want to tick off, you know, the workforce. Don't want to tick off the unions.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the, you know, in the political sphere, you know, don't want to take people's jobs away.
We can't have it.
Yeah, can't have that. And then 2020 hit, pandemic.
And everyone's
whole
like, to hell with the jobs.
Yeah, and then you've got these people, it's like, we need to automate this so it doesn't happen again.
That's right.
So now they're in just full swing. And you saw the Boston Dynamics little dance-off a few months ago. It's just...
The robot dog
crazy
thing?
Like, they made
all of them.
They made Spot, And
oh, wow.
they're going great guns now. They're just like, my goodness. So the point is that this is now in the timeline. This is in this decade now. We're going to have automation of not only low-skilled jobs, but even higher-skilled jobs like, you know, an AI can actually look at your scans.
Like an X-ray.
And they can tell better than a human being if you've got whatever diagnosis it's going for.
Whoa.
With a higher level of accuracy. So it's like these people across the board, they're getting, even lawyers.
Don't study law.
Don't study law.
Do not study law.
You're just going to get shafted by a robot.
I guess if it's fact-based, then maybe a robot doesn't have the human emotion side to it.
I can't see you.
Well,
I can see you.
You can see me. Let's go. Simo, because Simo doesn't want, like, he's almost never on camera. So just
I just
you
press
were saying,
the buttons.
You just press the buttons. So you were saying,
he's so handsome. Though.
Yeah. So you were saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, when it comes to law, then if a robot's doing it, that's.
He said it was.
There's no
fact-based.
human emotion on decision making, because a jury, you know, there's that humanitarian side of, I feel sorry for them, but a robot would never do that.
Well, I guess presenting a case and finding all the facts, that's right up a computer, information systems alleyway.
I think basically having essentially huge data sets that an AI can comb through. So precedents, different, judges making decisions on similar
that's
cases.
What you mean by precedents.
So basically, an AI will be able to filter, thousands of cases
real quick
and pick out, sort of.
Yeah, the relevant points.
Essentially distill those
to support the case or refute the other side's case, and
whatever
and
the case is. But essentially, they can then, reduce the amount of time it takes to research any given amount of cases, which is what a lot of lawyers do. You know, they'll work in a team. They'll have 20 lawyers.
Yeah, and they'll research
one lawyer is basically, you know, the one that goes to court, the barrister or whatever, and then
in our system, yes.
Yeah, and then you've got these other 19 guys backstage basically reading stacks of papers, trying to find, you know, precedents and things that can support their case to get the win. So that's essentially now you're in a neural net's
that's sifting
home territory,
through it and,
right?
and learning,
Sifting through huge amounts of data, looking for correlations, all that sort of stuff. That's
And so, what happens to the price of these things now that you've got 20 lawyers looking through stuff? That's costing a packet. So now you've got computers. And what's the difference in price? That what are we looking at?
So I think we're looking at now probably even like browser-based AIs where a plaintiff could basically have a subscription to a law service for like $30 a month and get all the legal advice they need.
Oh my gosh.
And that legal advice would be, orders of magnitude more accurate because it's actually going through
and timely,
right? So it can be done like that. And I think lawyers, you're going to still need lawyers. Okay, I don't think robots are going to be going before a judge anytime soon.
They won't micromanage. They'll be overseers.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll be the presenters of the cases in courtrooms and stuff like that. You still need the human factor to be able to make decisions where empathy and sort of the human side of things need to come into play.
Yeah.
But as far as the facts of a case go, that stuff is
that's
like
all right,
AI, man.
What about this? So we've got them in the courtroom, but what about in the field? What about cops, like robots helping, say law enforcement? So do you remember seeing these YouTube videos of like cops overstepping their authority? Abusing that. So what would happen if you had a cop and an AI-based robot doing whatever it is, the stopover? And what would happen if the cop, say, unbeknownst to them, oversteps the line? I mean, the AI is going to, I'm guessing, respond and say, no, actually, that's not right. You're supposed to do this. And the citizen is correct. I'm guessing that we will have that moment where that's going to happen, and it's going to be all over the internet, and we're going to that's going to be a change.
I think citizens will be armed with the full power of the law, right? They won't be able to enforce it, but because they don't have the guns, well, unless they're in the States, and then everyone's got guns. But I think the point is that law enforcement is really down to what is the law, and as far as what is the law that's relevant to your situation, that information is now accessible to anyone.
You could have an app called Instant Lawyer or whatever.
Instant Lawyer, and it just basically...
look out, patent pending. Mind Gap Technologies.
It's just a Zoom.
You've got your smartphone. You activate the camera on the phone, and the camera starts recording the whole situation, audio and video, feeds it up to a neural net. The neural net's like, okay, the cop can't do this, the cop can't say that, your legal rights are to do this, and it's all real time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so we would have, I guess you would say, less fumbling about, even at the front line of law enforcement, because you'll have on both sides, you'll have AIs backing up the citizen and AIs backing up the police. And if, say, because the police obviously has the authority, if they overstep, the AI can pull them back. That's kind of like a win for everyone.
I mean, the application with the lawyers and that, I reckon that would be quite an advancement, wouldn't you? Say?
Yeah. Because it's like people don't, unless you've got money to, not necessarily money to burn, but unless you've got deep pockets, lawyers aren't the people that you would resort to in every situation.
No.
because they're expensive.
They're expensive. Yeah.
Very expensive.
Talk about billable hours. I mean, some of these guys are like $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So
yeah. But I think that the point is that where the alleged crime is happening in real time, those citizens now have the protection of the law in the face of the law in real time. So
that's
if a cop's saying,
thing.
you know, you've done this and, you know, we've got the evidence and stuff like, well, then the AI can be like, you have no obligation to say anything to this officer. Do you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. It could even go to the point where it's actually going to sort of start building a legal defense for you in real time as things are actually happening.
Wow.
That's... Yeah.
That would be so... Can you imagine that as far as race is concerned? Because race is a huge thing.
Race is a huge
thing. Imagine these AIs just completely ignore the whole race thing. They understand race. They understand the implications. But they make sure that whatever they do, it's like you're not marginalising a person because of race.
Exactly.
And so now you're lifting up all of the people that are oppressed unfairly because of whatever it is.
They're completely non-judgmental, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
They're not judgmental.
They don't care about your race, your height, your sex, or lack thereof.
How good looking you are, how ugly you are.
Oh, man. You know, so no preferential treatment. The law is the law by the letter of the law, in the face of the law.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the end of the day, the cop has a gun. But how about this? How about if all the guns of law enforcement were then basically connected live?
It has to be authorized.
And it has to be authorized to shoot.
I think
that would be...
Well, that is a different... That's like a...
It depends on the situation, right? Because sometimes cops are doing things on instinct to save their own lives. But then you look at other things where cops have wrongly shot so many people.
Yes. You see, there's two sides. So it's like speeding.
Yeah.
Like, because we have the technology to slow the cars down, but then it's a huge
grey area.
Because you've got the
we need that legal AI. We need that legal AI to sort
Let's
out.
not go into that today, but yeah, that's good. That's like empowering both sides. So it's like if you're a guy, let's say a middle-aged dude who's dressed like pretty crappy because you just came from the paint shop or the gym or whatever, and you're in a situation where you have to confront the police, it's like that's not a good look,
right?
And on the other side, you're a beautiful girl on the rich side of the area you've got, and you confront the police. There's two different scenarios.
Yes, agreed.
And usually the girl gets away with things just because that's how it is.
Depends on the cop.
It depends on the cop, but I mean, now those two situations are like, you know, it's like making it fairer for people in less favorable situations, and it's stopping people who normally would get away with something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's over.
It levels the playing field.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about something the other day where, say you arrive at a crime scene, you're a cop, and you're trying to take command of the crime scene. You're trying to seal it, right? So that no evidence gets disturbed.
Yep.
Right? What if you had like a Boston Dynamics spot, but that was sort of then able to basically do a DNA sniff of the whole crime scene and store all the DNA of all the people that have been on the crime scene, and then use its sensors, like it could probably see in ultraviolet, it could probably see in infrared, and scan the whole scene. Obviously, Spot itself is not leaving any DNA because it's a robot. And essentially capture the whole scene in 4 dimensions, essentially in real time, and then gather stuff like DNA, do a chemical sampling of the whole crime scene.
I know what you mean. Just lots of data points.
And scan the whole thing in multiple spectrums, so ultraviolet, X-ray, infrared, and visual spectrum. Record all of that. Do you know what I mean? So essentially you've got a real-time capture of a crime scene where usually you'd have to seal the crime scene off. There's still stuff getting into the crime scene. You can't properly manage the scene. You've got cops everywhere. You've got citizens trying to, do a live cast or something, and you've got reporters, you got people that are still involved in the crime at the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a pretty relevant usage case for robots when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Because it's quite time sensitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you got a crime scene and
You
like,
gotta lock it down, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
lock that down.
Lock it down. But anyway, I was just thinking, like, having seen that Boston Dynamics dancing robots, it's all cool that we've got, dancing robots. But how would we...
What can we do with them?
What are the usage case scenarios for these robots that are so sort of dexterous and,
Well, that's kind of an interesting point you bring up, because that's just going to get more and more and more. The gap is just going to get wider and wider as far as what the robots can do and what we can't do.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised how many years will pass before, you'll have a robot that can do literally, at our best, we've got, a skater that can do a quadruple spin or whatever it is on the ice. You'll have a robot that could do like 20 or something.
Yeah.
100, just a giant spin.
Because it's just mathematics, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and we wouldn't be able to touch it with a stick. And
because I think
imagine the robot like, I know kung fu, and then it's just like,
well, what about this? You've seen a printer. You've seen a dot matrix printer.
Yeah.
So a dot matrix printer has a series of little punches, and as the print head is going, it's punching the paper and making letters form on the other side. And it's so fast, you hear whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine a large version of that. And we are the paper. There's no way.
we are the paper.
There's no
nice
like,
analogy.
you'd have a AI samurai. They all just mow through a crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all just mow through a crowd. Doesn't matter what if it's finished.
Dude, the future of warfare is scary as hell. That's insane. Now they've got these. So I was also having a look at an Israeli company. I think, can't remember the name of it, but they've basically got now a stealth drone that carries bombs, and it's completely controlled by AI. Like it just seeks and destroys.
Is that the tiny one?
It's about the size of this table, I think. Maybe a bit bigger.
I saw a tiny one.
Yeah.
That they actually have individual targets, like for assassination, and they just blow up next to a person's head, and that's it.
It's a game over.
It's finished, yeah.
Whoa.
Well, it took a morbid turn.
Yeah, let's unmorbidize ourselves. So, we were going on about automation of so eventually we're talking like 50 million people in the US alone with no job in just even in a decade.
Yeah.
So what are these people going to do? How are we going to keep the economy afloat?
So I think what's going to compound that is also we are globally now approaching zero population growth for the next 20 years. So essentially what's happened is the kids that are born today are going to be less likely to have large families. So the average couple have 2.5 children. I think, don't know if that's a US statistic or a global statistic, but if you have a look at what's happening in, for instance, Japan, where they have a negative population growth, right? And then you've got, so I was listening to another podcast recently. I won't say which podcast, but
say it. Say it.
I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
And he interviewed a doctor who was basically an endocrinologist.
Yes.
And I think she was also an epidemiologist. But essentially, what she did was she got she's been collecting a whole bunch of data about how plastics in our environment are reducing the fertility of humans. There are these chemicals like called phthalates that leach out of plastics.
I heard about that.
It's in our food, and essentially they're hormonal blockers, right?
Yes.
So they reduce the fertility of men in particular, but also women.
Yes.
And our sperm rates have declined to the point where they're like 50% of what they were 2 generations ago. And if this continues, essentially, we're going to be out of sperm. Like there won't be any good swimmers, right? So
I heard about that.
Yeah,
yes.
so it's a real situation, and the biggest problem is that there's no way to get rid of plastics out of the environment now. They're so entrenched in every. I was reading an article about plastic rain the other day where they were actually sampled raindrops and there was microplastics in the rain. So
Jesus.
Talk about
Whoa.
Saturation. It's not just in the oceans. It's not just in your food. Forget about your immediate environment. It's falling out of the sky on you now. So
gosh.
we're at complete saturation with microplastics, and
I heard about it because of the fertility rate.
Yeah.
The fertility rate of young men is going down.
yeah, exactly.
And
And young children that are born today have can't remember exactly, but it's a vastly increased chance of lower fertility
Low
than
mortality.
our generation.
Yeah.
And apparently she was doing some studies with like university students in their 20s measuring their taints, if you know what a taint is. It's basically the
I'll look it
AGD, so anogenital distance. And apparently the closer that distance is, the less fertile you are, and that's not something that can be improved. That's actually a thing that if you in the womb as you're developing, that kind of locks you in essentially for your life, right? So kids born these days, their AGDs are actually reduced to a point where they're going to have half the fertility of their parents. And it's a real issue. Do you know what I mean? Like as population growth goes to zero and then goes negative.
I know that the population. This is decade-old knowledge from that I read a long time ago. But the population curve is an S, right? It goes up, and then as the population gains, what do you call it? As they become more affluent, they have less kids and it starts to taper off. I think that's what it was. And so Australia's been through it, America's been through it, Japan's been through it. And then you have all the India and China, they're going through it. So their populations exploded a while ago and now it's tapering off.
Yeah, you're right. So I think there is a correlation between the amount of kids a population have on average and their socioeconomic status. And the better that status is, the less children they'll have per couple.
Because they'll be having fun.
Yeah.
They'll be going out, checking the cinema. What are we going to do? Oh, we'll go to the beach for the weekend.
Well, I think the
kids later.
Yeah. I think the situation is that a lot of children are born through lack of sexual education, lack of availability of contraception.
Yes.
And also sometimes they're had on purpose because they simply know that
they might die.
I'm going to lose 2 kids here. That's just the reality of the situation. Cholera,
all the basic stuff,
all the diseases that are out there. So I'm going to need to have 6-7 kids
just in case
I lose a few.
Yeah, that sounds terrible, but that's true. And also they help around the farm. They help do crazy jobs.
Dude, that's the life insurance policy of
the family
of the the people who are on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, unfortunately, right? As they get older, they need their kids to support them because they don't have pensions, they don't have superannuation funds, they don't have government support. Even these people, that forget about slipping through the cracks. They were born in the crack, and they're gonna probably die in the crack. So,
I've seen that even in my own life.
Yeah,
like my mum had just me, but my grandmother had 16
kids.
Wow,
so that's a lot of cousins.
And she lost 2. She lost 2 straight away, so it's really 14. So, and that was because that was back in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So as soon as it came here, it's just changed. You don't see people here having that many too often. So
no, exactly. So
that's an extremely high number.
Yes,
it is.
I can't believe that.
But I think
it was possible. But
going back to the need for robots to assist with society.
Yes, that's where we're going. Yes,
the fact of the matter is that we're having less kids, and there's going to be less kids coming in the future to support the aging population.
So that's a good thing overall, because we are struggling to feed the a potentially larger population anyway.
Yeah.
So we need to get our house in order to support a larger population anyway.
Yeah.
But also to that, AI can also help with, say, learning-based AI to help the teachers, because we have a huge teacher shortage, not just here but in the US. They have terrible teacher shortages.
Yeah.
And so the AI could assist the teachers. So instead of having, one teacher for every 30 or 40 kids, you could have one teacher plus 2 or 3 AI assistants, or for every kid an AI assistant. So they will need less actual teacher support and can just rely on the AI.
Yeah. I think we're kind of there already with these sort of sentient intrusive AIs that people have in their houses now, like Alexa and what's the Google one, Google Home and Siri. If you just take that technology and put it in the classroom, essentially teachers are just supervisors at that point, right?
Yeah.
But ask it whatever you want, kid. Here's your exam.
They do that.
Here's your exam.
They do that. My kid did that for the Captain Cook thing.
It's ridiculous.
What? He had to do stuff about Captain Cook, and he says, "Hey Google, when did Captain Cook come here?" And Google's like, "Tell it." Oh, see, look, it just.
Oh, it came up, did it?
Wikipedia.
Yep, Captain James Cook. Thank you,
you
Google.
So,
I actually didn't want to.
Bloody AI interrupting.
AI's interrupting.
God damn it.
There's nothing futuristic about it, man. It's here and now. It's just about everywhere. I mean, you carry it around in your pocket, but
True.
When you're talking about teaching assistants, teachers, man. I mean, they won't be obsolete, because essentially children still need discipline and guidance, and they
would be empowered.
They'll be empowered.
They'd be empowered because they're sinking.
Yeah.
They need the AI to give them the boost.
When we were growing up, it was maybe 20 kids to a class.
Yeah, we
right?
had enough teachers back then.
Now it's 50 kids to a class or something, and
you need that immersion. You need that immersion.
Yeah.
With the teacher, but you just don't get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to be able to interact with your classmates.
Yeah.
And you also got to be able to interact with the teacher when you don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that bit right there, I think that's the AI will come in to help every kid. Bring every kid up to wherever they need to be in that point in time. So
I think
everything we've talked about up until now is good.
But I think with AI teachers, think about when the third world gets access to AI.
Oof.
And AI teachers specifically. So you think about these kids that are born up in poor rural areas like rural Uganda and Zimbabwe and places like that where internet service is poor. Shout out to Starlink.
Yes.
And
nice.
and
Very
you've got a lot of children, right? So that people in these rural areas are still having 6-7 kids. Very little education available immediately. The education that is available is either expensive or understaffed, like you were saying. They've got too many kids, not enough teachers. Think about when those communities have access to the internet, and I'm talking about 2002 internet. I'm talking about 1,000 megabits per second internet, courtesy of satellites, and then you deploy teaching AIs to those communities, and think about the transformation that'll happen.
You would find all the potential Einsteins in the world real
Dude,
quick.
So many ideas. So many ideas that, you've got people in the first world trying to solve problems in the third world.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm in my ivory tower and I'm trying to solve hunger in bloody Malawi. No. No. You just give the people in Malawi the education and the tools.
And they will have the willpower to do it.
They not only have the willpower, but they've got the real life experience that matters, right?
To solve it the most appropriate way for them.
The best way possible, right? Because they need to use what's available to them.
Yeah.
They need something that's simple, that's fixable, that scales. Dude, I mean, just get these people the access, and it'll. I'm not saying it'll solve itself. It'll take time.
It'll take time, but
the best people for the problem will emerge. Do you know what I mean? The best people who solve the problem will emerge. And at the moment, the only thing holding them back is access to the information,
which costs money.
Which
right? Brings me. Oh, this is the best time to talk about this. So if we've got all these things happening, and we have people being retrenched and people, being helped by AI, they'll also be displaced by AI as far as their jobs go. So now, what do we give these people? Because it could be people we know. It could be, it could be us. It could be. There's just no one's safe, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
So what do we do as a society when presented to this? I mean, there's obviously that big 3-letter solution that's kind of being toadied about, which is universal basic income.
Oh, he said it.
But how?
He said it, Simos.
How do we?
Oh God!
How do we?
Wash your mouth.
I'll go wash my mouth. So.
Okay,
only in
explain to the people who
people who don't know.
Slowly raising my hand.
You are blessed. You are blessed if you don't know. But if you don't know, look, the term, we just have to just take it at face value. We're just talking about the term universal basic income, not the because there's a lot more of a deeper meaning to that that has been talked about. It's not a new idea; it's a very old idea. But let's not worry about what was very specific implementations of UBI. We're now just talking about we need to give people some money so that this whole transformation can take place, because we're still generating value, because money is just about representing value. That's the whole point. If I have money represents this much value, and if I do something that's this much value, I get money. And that's how our economy is like an abstracted value.
Yeah.
So the AI is still creating the value that we would have created if we were doing the jobs. But now we are displaced, but the value still remains. So how do we redistribute that value to everyone through some sort of UBI? Yeah.
So essentially, an AI has replaced 20,000 jobs. Essentially, those 20,000 people each get 1/20,000th percentage share of the value of whatever that AI generates.
That could be a solution, yes.
Or essentially, stepping stones, right? So essentially, those who are primarily displaced first are the ones who are going to be in most need of UBI.
Right.
Essentially, right? But so we can't just make it universal off the bat, because Bill Gates doesn't need 20 grand. Okay?
Yeah, it's like you have to satisfy certain
criteria. Okay, and then you've got
actually
the value proposition chain of what's feeding back into the economy. Okay, because without UBI, you've got 20,000 people, in this example, out of work. That's 20,000 less inputs back into the economy. And if you go exponential on it, the economy will implode. And
you don't want to go less, because that will shrink the economy.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So essentially, and the way economics works is, well, not even economics. Let's just talk about capitalism. Okay, capitalism is based on the fact that we have finite resources on the planet. Okay, and everweone. Essentially,
scarcity,
the scarcity formula. Okay, so essentially we have finite resources, but we're essentially divvying up those resources based on how they serve society. Okay,
yeah.
So when you look at it that way, when you say, okay, so these resources now, we're letting an artificial intelligence command and distribute those resources because it can do it more efficiently, it can do it at a lower price point, and it basically knows the best way to deploy that capital, okay? So then the people that are taken out of circulation by that, even though the AI has created that value, it's only created the value for the owner of the AI.
Yes.
Okay.
Which now, so this is now a very unique. Not unique. This is a point where we could a point of potential where what do you do there? Do you license out the AI like we did with slot machines, and say each slot machine has a license? So you can put slot machines in, but you have to pay for the slot machine and you derive the money out. And do you then allocate the people that got displaced with those licenses for the AIs in the assembly line? And will the owner continue to pay them a wage? So this is the whole political, well, I guess not political, a government-backed solution would potentially look like one of the many ways that they could skin this cat. So
I think the problem with that is that when corporations lose IP to governments, those corporations take their IP to other places, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen examples of that time and time again. So essentially, you can't.
Well,
you can't socialize.
But they can't do that anymore, because I know what you're saying. You're saying that. Are you saying this? That when, say, for example, say a company making shoes or shirts or whatever, if their workers, if the government tried to regulate the workers, and you have to pay someone this much, they'll say, okay, see you later. Let's go to El Salvador or Ecuador or whatever, and let's get it made there, because those people will do it for a lot less, and the governments don't care. And that's why we've got sweatshops in third world countries. But the AIs, they work for even less than the sweatshops with the higher economic output. So they're already bottom of the barrel as far as they've maxed out currently the potential output for like bang for their buck.
Yeah. So I think what I'm saying is, to your proposal that the government then oversees that AI and then redistributes a portion of the value of that AI to the 20,000 people that lost their jobs, the government would need to then take direct possession of the value of that AI. But that AI is private enterprise intellectual property, right?
Well, that's like what I was talking about with the slot machines. Each slot machine has a license.
Yeah.
So whether the slot machine can get replaced, the shop can get upgraded, the owner doesn't care about the slot machine. He or she just cares about the slot machine license.
Yeah.
He can buy and sell the licenses. So if he or she's got all these licenses, and they have slot machines there, that's all they care about, and then they get a percentage. And whoever owns the licenses, because you can put your own slot machine if you have the license, you can put it in. You make a deal
wherever
with whoever.
You want, yeah.
So it's just income streams, just like taxis, just like renting out an apartment. So you've got these licenses. So maybe just like with taxi licenses and slot machine licenses, we could have that model as a model for the new machines, which are AIs. I don't know, might work in some industries, might not work in the others. Like I've seen it, I think in Singapore, where they have cleaning robots, and the cleaning robots take over the jobs of certain cleaning companies, but I'm not sure on the details. But
are they government owned?
No, I don't know.
That's right. So
I don't know. But whether there's regulation or not.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing,
maybe you need
right?
a license.
Because they could be like, oh man, we've got these mad robots from China. Start up a company in Singapore and just go, hey, Singapore government, you've got these government buildings that are currently being cleaned by this other company that's employing 100,000 people.
Yeah.
We can do the whole thing at a third of the price with robots, and we're going to bid for that tender.
Right. So what you're saying is that people could still take advantage of the AI revolution by undercutting other companies. It might be a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Which
Well, that's
we don't
just
want.
normal business, though.
That is
Yes, but that means do we need to put some regulation in so that it isn't a race to the bottom? Because then what you've got is like that's Elon Musk was talking about that happening to Uber. And when Robotaxi comes out and he says, look, it'll eventually, the cost of a taxi ride will be 10 cents. And he's talking about there'll be just so many players and they'll be competing so harshly that it will just dive down to zero, the price. But then we're talking about the displacement of the current taxi workforce, and it's all of their income's going to go.
Yeah. But I think of it. So that's a great example. Think of this.
Yeah.
You've got an automated driverless taxi network.
Yeah.
And that taxi is now level 5 autonomous, right? Let's give it 10 years. Okay. So it's completely autonomous.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, mesh networks, AIs, the whole thing.
Yeah.
You now have a captive audience inside that taxi. So the cost of a taxi ride will be negative. You'll actually pay people to take your taxi rides because you have a captive audience in that taxi now with screens.
Yes. Well
that
said.
you can sell them
yeah.
advertising. Getting around will be a way for people to make money. Think of that.
Gosh.
Yeah. It's mobile
That's right.
advertising.
So we're not just driving the cost to zero, but we're
At
going
its core.
past zero, and we're actually now.
It's like TV.
It's
we don't pay to watch free-to-air TV. We
I
just
don't pay to watch YouTube.
we just watch the ads.
No, and yeah,
It's a service.
That's
I don't pay to watch
crazy.
YouTube. You know what I mean? And the flip side of that is that the YouTube are constantly shooting stuff to us for free,
Yeah,
and we're not exactly captive, right? We
No.
have options, but when you think about traditionally, if we were paying to watch YouTube, okay, so
yeah.
now you're paying for Netflix, you're paying for Amazon Prime, you're paying for
There's just so many solutions that could compete with each other.
exactly.
Yeah.
But when you've got someone in an enclosure for 20 minutes, you've got their undivided attention.
They might want to work.
They might want to work.
They might want to work.
yeah, but I think
But then they'll pay 10 cents for the ride.
Yeah, the
instead of
offset,
making 20
you just
cents.
deal with it,
right?
I
So they
guess.
got that option. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean?
I see. So, yes, I see.
Do you know what I mean?
that's true. Yeah,
So some people will want to pay, just like with people with
Yeah.
Netflix, they want to pay.
Yeah.
Other people want the free model, the freemium model.
Yep.
freemium.
And it'll
I
just
like
be
that.
just so many whatever the
A
capitalist
menagerie.
market decides, and
Yeah.
people will fill those markets.
Yeah.
Well, that is, in fact, I think so. So that would be for electric cars. So that's what happens when they become self-driving. You'll have the Uber, the AI chauffeur, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, and that could increase the reach of people. I mean, if you had a client that was overnight, you would have to drive. You could do that with your autonomous vehicle. You would just sleep
Yeah,
in the car for that night, and then you'd wake up and you'd be able to
Yeah.
go to see the client.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
just
think the way we think about mobility traditionally will need to be redesigned from the
Yes.
ground up. You're gonna need cars that don't look like cars. They're gonna be like maybe
mobile rooms.
in the CBD. There'll be pods. If you're going longer than say 40 minutes, you're gonna need like basically a mobile room on wheels. It's gonna have a toilet in it. It'll have a lounge with a big
my
screen
gosh.
TV. It'll have a mini bar.
wow.
And you're essentially going for a $2 journey, 3 hours up the coast
Yeah.
in a mobile hotel room. And you've seen like these designs that Amazon have in their deal with Rivian, where essentially it's like
They look very nice.
they look cool, right? Essentially, it's a pod, and it sits like 6 people or something. But I think that's still an intermediary step when you're talking about net zero mobility. Okay, so it doesn't cost you anything to go anywhere.
Wow.
And you're in a position where you can do whatever you want while you're getting around. You can watch a movie, you can work, you can sleep, you can eat. Then essentially, at that point, you need to sort of rethink what a car is, right?
Yeah, and there'll be markup. You'll have Maccas, you'll have whatever it is, and that's how they'll make their money.
Dude, you just have like a little thing inside the car. Every 2 hours, it goes by a Macca's drive-through. They just put 20 burgers in this little thing, and then it just drives around picking people up, and then they've just got the option inside the car to buy a burger for $2. You just tap, it opens a little hatch, you get a burger, you're in the car eating.
Look, society will change at a fundamental level.
Yeah.
How we do everything. Like, what are we going to use car parks for in the future?
Recharging stations. That's the only thing I can think of.
But you might recharge on the road. You might recharge at a parking station. You might tell your car, look, I'm going to be at work for another 3 hours. Go off and make money.
Yep.
Go off and do robo-taxi.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to pick up my kids and pick up the groceries.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you said, move past Macca's or whatever. If you
drones
don't have to go and get something and you just go, hey, do you want this? You'd be like, all right. The amount of profit you could make, to just go, hey, do you want this? You don't have to go and get it. It's right here. Do you want it? Oh, yeah, I want it.
Yeah.
And what if
the product is in situ at the time of demand?
Yeah.
When that demand is generated, the product is
right there.
Like you could make
you might have vertical farms. You might have vertical farms that grow the produce, and it's that fresh.
Yeah.
It just comes out, and that's the new fast food.
I don't want to get nefarious, but imagine every 2 minutes Macca's plays an ad on the screen in the car. And then they've got the little Macca's thing right there where you're like, all right, man, you got me. I'll have a Big Mac.
Yeah.
Give me a large
Well,
fries.
how about this? So with maybe basic
it's just
Neuralink.
the smell of burgers in the cabin. You're like,
oh gosh, they'll just,
that's too much, man.
That's just...
Well, we need my AI lawyer to get a lawsuit happening here.
Like, this is not right here. It's just
basically being reprogrammed on the fly.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if we had... Oh, what was I going to say? You said something about... you were saying about... Oh, yeah, I was going to say, if you have an AI neural... If you have a neural link, even basic neural link, then you would just think it. You could just think it, and you don't even have to ask the question out loud.
Dude, Neuralink... It's some scary shit to start with, but then when you think about, okay, so you've got the humanitarian possibilities, okay, paralyzed people can walk, blind people can see, deaf people can hear, etc., etc. But then you've got a monkey playing Pong better than Elon Musk plays Pong. So then you've got to be like, he's like, the monkey beat me at Pong.
Well, it's a monkey.
Yeah.
Dude, swinging the trees better than me. It's like, of course it can play Pong better than me.
Yeah, but I mean, supposedly we're the apex primates on this ball of dust, right? So when
yes, but maybe not as far as reaction time goes.
No, exactly. Yeah. But you think about now hyper intelligent humans. Okay,
is there such a thing?
Well.
I know that we
with a neural link,
could be
right?
Oh, right. Yes, okay.
You think about you want to learn a new skill, just upload it to your neural link.
So basically, I know this is heading because I think about this a lot. So you could have everybody knowing everything about anything, every language. Have we talked about this before? I think I may have mentioned this. Yeah, so you would have people who are in situ, close to whatever needs to be done, just goes off and does it.
Yeah, UAI, Universal Advanced Intelligence.
That was it. Yes.
Whoa,
that's right. Everyone's the smartest thing ever, and everyone is equal.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Because I was like, you could pick up a phone and go, I know how everything on this thing works.
Yeah.
I know every line of code.
That's
I
it.
know, the camera's broken. Oh, I need a new camera. And then a drone just starts flying towards you with a camera part.
Wow.
Can't get to you because the forest drops it into a little car, and the car just drives over to you and opens the door because the door's automated and just, there you go,
Drops
buddy.
it. Yeah.
See you later.
That's it.
Whoa.
But yeah, I mean, Neuralink is like, so I've been thinking a lot recently also about the kind of
That's freaky.
sort of Elon Musk's end game here, right? So with Tesla, he's got these mission statements, mission statement 1, mission statement part 2, but I think the whole Mars thing becoming sort of interplanetary as a species, he's setting himself up with his current ventures here on Earth to just completely dominate
Mars.
the moon.
You know why?
Mars.
Yeah, because you don't need tunnels here.
You need them on Mars.
You need them on Mars and the moon.
Dude, you can't
'Cause
survive on the surface of Mars. You need to be under the
Yeah, because
ground.
once you got robotaxi and all this, and people don't need to park their cars in the city, that's going to clear up. It's going to clear up. So the Boring Company.
So essentially, the Boring Company was like, man, traffic sucks. I'm going to start building tunnels.
Yeah.
And then he's like, existing tunnel makers are too slow and they're crap. So I'm going to design from the ground up my own boring tunnel maker.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, 10
So
times faster.
10 to 100 times faster.
Than the existing technology. And
Yeah.
it's going to make some sweet tunnels.
Yeah.
And now he's basically... So in Las Vegas, they've got the Las Vegas Convention Center. And he's got a tunnel under that, and it's just shipping people around because it takes
test it.
40 minutes to walk the length of...
And they love it.
And
They want it
Really?
everywhere.
People want it. So now they're thinking about doing the whole of Vegas, so the whole strip.
Yeah, Vegas.
So you can do...
That's one of the locations where this makes sense here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mars. So it makes
And
sense
Mars.
in Mars. 'cause
Well, I mean, here on Earth. Yeah,
Right.
makes sense, yeah.
So the atmosphere on Mars is essentially... It's like 80% carbon dioxide and...
90-something.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then... it's essentially...
And it's 1% as thick as us, as our atmosphere, yeah.
It's virtually not there, dude. And
it's
then...
Everest.
Yeah. And then you've got...
Yeah.
Interstellar radiation constantly cooking the surface of Mars. You've got all sorts of issues with the surface of Mars. The most logical place to be is underground.
Tunnels. Yes.
So he's essentially building
Starbase and tunnels.
tunnel makers here on
With
Earth.
solar power
Just stick them
and
in a
electric
starship.
cars. Because remember,
Dude,
Wow.
internal combustion engines need oxygen.
that's right.
Yeah.
So,
True.
and now he's got these solar. So essentially, his solar panels, that they're one of the most efficient solar panels in mass production. There are much more efficient ones that are in low production, like lab scale production, right? Like 34% efficient. I think his are like 29 to 30% efficient, still like really efficient.
Yeah.
But if you think about how you're going to harvest energy and store it on a planet that is pretty far away, then
Give me a
yeah,
sec.
it's a logical thing.
Can't see anything. Oh, hang on. Where's Joshy? Hey! No.
Hey man,
Hey, man.
Okay. Would you mind, like, how much of that did we get? Did you cut, or are we still going?
No, still going.
All right.
cool.
So,
Yeah, man. So I'm pretty sure.
so this is the thing. So it's just dawned on me actually now. So Elon Musk, everything that he's been doing with electric cars, solar panels, the Boring Company, Neuralink, AI automation, Starbase, SpaceX. It's to go to Mars.
it's
To go to Mars, build a city, build tunnels, And the electric cars drive through them.
It's not Mars, dude. It's everything. It's the moon. It's Mars. It's
So
basically
that's the end game.
Jeebus.
In other words,
any planet with a hard surface that can be tunneled into.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Like, I mean, he's completely out of control.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you've got essentially, he's developing autonomy with solving computer vision for vehicles. Okay, think about how important that is if you want to automate
the food and transport system on Mars.
On Mars, okay. You want people to be able to get around in tunnels under the ground and go from one tunnel city, like one underground city, to another underground city super fast and network them all with tunnels.
And you've got energy from the solar.
Yep. Beaming down, getting stored in...
rockets from SpaceX.
Battery packs. He's got SpaceX rockets, so his Starship...
we'll do round trips.
Yeah, like, but the fuel that they need to run Starship, they can make all that fuel on Mars.
Exactly.
Just using electricity from harvested sunlight.
Yeah.
So he's essentially using these companies on Earth that are disguised as technologies
it's all
for us.
That's the end game, is Mars.
He's basically perfecting those technologies, and the end game is to go completely interplanetary with basically all these technologies that he's developed that are all completely in sync with each other to get us to be an interplanetary species, right? So you think about that. So it wouldn't surprise me if at some point, once we start sending starships to Mars, that he's going to be putting boring machines
on Mars,
and they fit perfectly inside a starship, right? They just so happen to fit like to the centimeter, just perfectly. Oh, look, it just happens to fit exactly inside a starship.
9 point something meters, aren't they?
They're not big tunneling machines.
I know the hull is 9 point something meters.
It is,
on a starship.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm telling you, man, he's playing. We think he's playing 3D chess. He's playing 5D chess. He's not even playing 4D
chess.
Even
4.
No,
5D chess.
Yeah, he's like next level, dude. So that's where I think, like, you know, I'm pretty sure he's thinking about this all the time. He's like, man, like, to get a sustainable city on Mars, we need to do it underground. Let's develop boring machines here, make them the best, most efficient boring machines that we can make. And that technology is constantly improving as well. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got, let's solve computer vision. Let's get the smartest dudes on the planet. You know, Andre Karpathy and his, SAS crack team of AI coders, and let's solve computer vision, not just for cars, but I reckon...
once it solves that, it solves everything.
It solves everything, dude. So, like...
You can make pizza with them.
Think about starships that are fully autonomous.
Crazy.
Like, completely autonomous. You just got cameras on them and AI, and they can basically launch, land, refuel, relaunch, reland, and just shuttle between Earth and Mars completely autonomously.
Then some YouTuber would make a practical joke on his friend. He'll have the car drive him to a SpaceX airport and launch him to Mars, and he wakes up on Mars and he had no idea.
Yeah.
Prank.
That's what we'll use Instagram and YouTube for in the future.
It's only a 3 to 4 months journey, so he's going to have to sleep for a while. But
just knock him out with some stuff.
True.
All right, thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, no
that
worries,
was
man.
Killer talk.
It was good shooting the breeze.
Yeah, good having you in the
These
studio.
ideas out of our head.
Yeah. Lots to discuss as always.
We went through everything.
Yeah, we
I
got
didn't have much else. We didn't have much else. I was gonna talk about maybe the economy and capitalism versus valuism, but we talked about that anyway.
We went through that in past.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
See you again soon.
Nice.
Beauty. All right.
Jesus.